Imagine this. You work hard for years, you save, you invest, and you try to make the right financial decisions. You listen to experts, read articles, follow trends, and do your best to play the money game correctly. But one day, something happens. A sudden downturn, a surprising expense, a shift in the market, or maybe an emotional decision you didn't even realize you were making. And suddenly, everything changes. It's in that moment you realize something important. Your financial success has far less to do with how smart you are, and far more to do with how you behave. Two people with the same income can end up in totally different places. Two investors with access to the same information can make completely opposite choices. Two families with similar opportunities can build entirely different futures. Why? Because money isn't just math. It's psychology. What you believe, what you fear, what you attach meaning to, what you envy, what you hope for, how you manage risk, how you react to surprise events, and how you behave under stress. These shape your financial life far more than spreadsheets ever will. That's the real lesson behind The Psychology of Money, a book that has become a favorite among investors, entrepreneurs, and everyday readers who want to understand why people make the financial choices they do. This isn't a book about stock charts, valuation formulas, or investment hacks. It's about something deeper and far more universal: how humans think about money, and how our thinking often gets in our own way. If you've ever wondered why smart people make dumb financial decisions, why some people become wealthy but can't stay wealthy, why enough is never enough for many, why luck and risk shape our lives more than we admit, why saving matters more than investing strategy, why freedom, not luxury, is the real financial goal, why pessimism sounds smarter than optimism, why we believe certain financial stories too easily, then you're in the right place. By the time you finish this summary, you'll not only understand the key ideas of the book, but you'll see money in a completely new way. You'll be better prepared to navigate your own financial choices, avoid common traps, and build a healthier relationship with wealth. So let's dive into one of the most refreshing, honest, and human perspectives on money ever written, about the book A&D author. The Psychology of Money is written by Morgan Housel, a writer known for his clear thinking and ability to turn complex financial ideas into simple, relatable stories. Housel has spent years studying human behavior, investing history, and the strange ways people handle money. His background in behavioral finance makes him uniquely qualified to explain why our choices with money are often emotional, even when we believe we're being rational. This book isn't a traditional finance guide. There are no get-rich-quick tricks, no predictions, no formulas. Instead, Housel explores timeless principles shaped by history, psychology, and real-world decision-making. What makes the book stand out is its focus on behaviors most people ignore: discipline, patience, humility, self-awareness, and the ability to manage emotions. These are the skills that truly determine financial success, yet they rarely get taught in school, at home, or even in most finance courses. The book is structured into 20 short, powerful chapters. Each chapter tells a story or presents an insight that reveals something about human nature and how we interact with money. In this summary, you'll get a detailed look at each chapter, along with the big ideas, stories, and lessons behind them. Let's begin with the overarching themes. Overview of main themes. Before we break down the chapters one by one, it helps to understand the major ideas of the book. Here are the themes that run through all 20 chapters. 1. People aren't crazy. They see money through the lens of their own unique experiences. Your background shapes your financial worldview more than facts do. 2. Luck and risk influence financial outcomes more than effort or intelligence. Good decisions sometimes lead to bad outcomes, and bad decisions sometimes lead to good ones. 3. Knowing when enough is one of the rarest and most valuable financial skills. Greed and envy destroy more wealth than market crashes. 4. Compounding is the most powerful force in finance, but it's only powerful if you give it time. Most people underestimate how exponential growth really works. 5. Getting money and keeping money are two different skills. One requires taking risks, the other requires humility and fear.
6. A few events, rare, extreme outcomes drive almost everything. Most investing success comes from a small number of big wins. 7. The real goal of money is freedom. Control over your time and decisions is the highest form of wealth. 8. Wealth is hidden. Just because someone looks rich doesn't mean they are rich. 9. Saving is more important than income or investment strategy. Wealth comes from a gap between income and ego. 10. Reasonable behavior beats perfectly rational behavior. People are human, and money decisions shouldn't ignore emotions. 11. Surprises are normal. History is full of unpredictable events, and the future will be no evil protects you from life's surprises. 13. You will change.
People see the world differently. Financial disagreements often come from different life experiences, not wrong thinking. 16. Pessimism feels more realistic than optimism. It sounds smart, but over time, optimism is usually right. 17. Stories influence people more than statistics. We often believe financial narratives that feel good, even when they're not true. 18. Putting the ideas together creates a practical, steady approach to money. Simple, long-term strategies work better than complicated ones. 19. The author shares his personal financial philosophy based on all these lessons. It's simple, grounded, and focused on freedom rather than luxury. With these themes in mind, let's move chapter by chapter. Chapter by chapter summary. Chapter 1. No one's crazy. One of the most liberating ideas in the book is this. People make decisions about money based on their own personal experiences. And those experiences are different for everyone. Someone who grew up poor sees money differently from someone who grew up comfortable. Someone who lived through inflation sees money differently from someone who lived through a recession. Someone who saw their parents lose money in the stock market will naturally be more cautious. Someone who watched friends get rich through investing might be more aggressive. To you, their behavior might seem irrational. But to them, it might be perfectly reasonable. No one is crazy. They're just shaped by what they've lived through. This idea helps us become less judgmental and more understanding of why people make the financial choices they do. It also reminds us to examine our own biases. Chapter 2. Luck and Risk. We like to think hard work determines success, but reality is far more complicated. Luck and risk play a huge role in financial outcomes. Two people can make the same decision and get completely different results. Billions can be made or lost because of timing, circumstances, or random events. This doesn't mean effort doesn't matter. It does. But it means we should be careful before judging others or becoming overly confident in our own success. The lesson? Focus less on individual outcomes and more on whether your decision-making process is sound. Chapter 3. Never enough. Many people who achieve great wealth still feel they don't have enough. Why? Because enough is not a number. It's a decision. If you constantly compare yourself to others, you'll always find someone with more. If you chase status or validation, you'll never feel satisfied. The cost of wanting more is often peace, happiness, or even freedom. Learning to recognize enough is one of the most valuable financial skills. It helps you avoid unnecessary risks and enjoy what you already have. Chapter 4. Confounding Compounding. Compounding is simple in theory, but almost impossible for people to intuitively grasp. We understand addition. We struggle with exponential growth. Compounding rewards patience, and patience is rare. Most of Warren Buffett's wealth didn't come from his intelligence alone, but from the fact that he's been investing since he was a child. He simply allowed compounding to work for an extremely long time. Compounding only works if you stick with it, and sticking with it requires resisting distractions, temptations, and panic. Chapter 5. Getting Wealthy versus Staying Wealthy. Getting wealthy often involves taking risks, being optimistic, and pursuing opportunities others might avoid. But staying wealthy requires almost the opposite mindset: humility, fear, and a strong desire for safety. It's a paradox. Boldness builds wealth. Caution preserves it. Many fortunes are built through smart bets, but they're lost because people failed to respect risk. The lesson is simple. Survival is the most important financial skill. Chapter 6. Tails. You win. In finance, a small number of events drive most outcomes. A handful of stocks create most market returns. A few career choices shape your entire work life. A few decisions define your personal financial story. These rare extreme events, called tails, drive the majority of results. Most people underestimate how important these tail events are. They judge success or failure based on averages. But averages hide the extremes. To succeed financially, you need to accept the reality of big, unpredictable events and position yourself so that when a rare positive event comes, you benefit from it. Chapter 7. Freedom. One of the most powerful ideas in the book is that the real goal of money isn't status or luxury. It's freedom. Money gives you the ability to wake up and decide how you spend your day. It gives you control over your time, your schedule, and your choices. People chase wealth for many reasons, but underneath almost all of them is the same desire, the feeling that you're in charge of your own life. Housel argues that the highest form of wealth is the ability to say, "I don't have to do this if I don't want to." It's not the car, the house, or the fancy job title. It's autonomy. It's walking away from what drains you and walking toward what energizes you. Even small amounts of financial stability can unlock this sense of control. The peace that comes from an emergency fund, or from not being dependent on a paycheck-to-paycheck cycle, is a form of freedom that many underestimate. When the pressure to constantly impress or outperform others goes away, you start making choices that actually align with your values. Freedom gives you space to make better decisions. And money, used well, becomes a tool to protect that freedom instead of a measure of your worth. Chapter 8. The man in the car paradox. The next idea is one most people learn too late in life. We often buy things to impress others: cars, clothes, gadgets, houses. We want people to admire us, respect us, or see us as successful. But here's the paradox. People don't think what you think they think. When someone sees a person driving an expensive car, they usually don't think, "Wow, that driver is impressive." They think, "If I had that car, I'd look impressive." In other words, people project admiration onto the object, not onto the owner. The attention people hope to receive rarely lands on them. It lands on the thing they purchased. And because no one actually thinks about us as much as we think they do, the effort to buy admiration almost always fails. This chapter is a reminder that money spent on status is largely wasted. Actual respect comes from character, not consumption. Real wealth quietly builds confidence. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need applause. The man in the car paradox helps us shift our attention to what truly matters, what we think of ourselves, not what strangers think of us. Chapter 9. Wealth is what you don't see. This chapter challenges one of the biggest misconceptions about wealth. We mistake visible spending for financial success. We see the vacations, the cars, the fashion, the lifestyle. But true wealth is invisible. It's the money saved, the money invested, the money quietly growing in the background. It's the options you've built for the future. The flashy parts of life are usually signs of spending, not wealth. And in many cases, the people who look rich are actually fragile. They depend on high income, high credit, or high stress just to maintain their lifestyle. Wealth is the gap between your ego and your income. If the ego wins, wealth disappears. If humility wins, wealth grows. This idea helps explain why some people with high incomes struggle financially, while others with modest incomes thrive. Wealth is a behavior, not a display. Chapter 10. Save money. This chapter lays out one of the simplest and most overlooked principles in personal finance. Saving is more important than how much you earn or how well you invest. You don't need extraordinary income. You don't need brilliant investments. You don't need perfect timing. You just need to consistently save. People often obsess over finding the best investment strategy, comparing funds, predicting market movements, or chasing higher returns. But saving gives you flexibility, security, and runway. Saving is a mindset. It's the choice to create a gap between what you have and what you spend. It's proof that you value your future more than temporary impulses. Housel explains that savings also represent something deeper than dollars. They represent control. They represent the ability to slow down, take risks, change careers, or walk away from situations that aren't right for you. When you save, you buy time and freedom. And time, compounded over a lifetime, builds opportunities you can't predict. Chapter 11. Reasonable Midas, Rational. Traditional finance assumes people make logical decisions, but real life doesn't work that way. Very few people are perfectly rational. People have emotions, fears, memories, traumas, desires, and instincts. And that means a financial decision doesn't have to be perfectly rational to be good. It just needs to be reasonable. For example, someone might prefer paying off a low-interest mortgage quickly instead of investing more aggressively. Rationally, that might not be the highest financial return. But if it helps them sleep better and reduces stress, it's reasonable. A strategy that keeps you committed is more valuable than a strategy that looks superior on paper but is impossible to stick with. Reasonable decisions take your humanity into account. This chapter reminds us that your financial choices should reflect your life, your personality, and your psychology, not a theoretical model. Chapter 12. Surprise. History is full of surprises. Wars, pandemics, crashes, booms, innovations, revolutions, inflation cycles, recessions. The world changes in ways people never see coming. Most financial plans assume the future will look like the past. But the biggest events in history didn't look anything like what came before them. They weren't predictable. They just happened. What does this mean for your financial life? It means the world will continue to surprise you. The best you can do is build a strategy that withstands uncertainty. Planning for the future means accepting that surprises aren't rare, they're normal. Good investing isn't about predicting the future. It's about preparing for a future you can't predict. That's why humility, flexibility, and resilience matter more than certainty. Chapter 13. Room for error. If surprises are normal, then having a margin of safety is essential. Room for error protects you from the unexpected. It protects you from yourself. It protects your long-term plans from short-term chaos. This chapter emphasizes that plans with no wiggle room are fragile. They break easily. A financial plan should survive bad luck, bad timing, and bad markets. It should assume mistakes will happen. It should leave space for life to be imperfect. Your investment strategy doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be durable. Room for error might come from extra cash reserves, lower spending, diversified investments, conservative forecasts, avoiding overconfidence. Margin of safety isn't pessimism. It's respect for reality. Chapter 14. You'll change. People imagine their future selves will want what they want today, but that's rarely true. Your values will change. Your priorities will shift. Your goals will evolve. This chapter encourages us to design financial plans that are flexible, not rigid. People often lock themselves into long-term paths because they believe they'll always want the same things. But when the future arrives, they realize they've changed. Allowing yourself the freedom to evolve is crucial. Money should give you the ability to adapt, not trap you in old decisions. Housel argues that one of the best investments you can make is in your own future flexibility. Chapter 15. Nothing's free. Everything has a cost. The price of success is often hidden. In investing, the cost might be volatility. In building wealth, the cost might be discipline and delayed gratification. In financial stability, the cost might be lower status or less flashy spending. People often want the reward without the cost. But every path has a price. The question is whether you're willing to pay it. For example, the stock market offers high long-term returns, but the cost is enduring frequent declines and uncertainty. Once you understand the cost, you stop being surprised by it. You stop fighting it. You simply decide whether it's worth it. Chapter 16, UA&ME. This chapter explores one of the most important ideas in the book. People make financial decisions based on their own life, not based on objective truths. You and someone else can look at the exact same data and come away with completely different conclusions. And both of you may be acting reasonably. Why does this happen? Because you're not just making decisions based on numbers. You're making decisions based on your upbringing, your fears, your responsibilities, your risk tolerance, your past experiences, your hopes, your personality. Someone who grew up poor sees money as security. Someone who grew up wealthy may see money as a tool for opportunity. Someone who lived through a market crash will be more cautious. Someone who has only lived through boom times may be more optimistic. Even the age difference between two people can create completely opposite investment opinions. Imagine, a 20-year-old entering a rising market sees opportunity. A 60-year-old nearing retirement sees danger. They're both correct for themselves. The lesson here is simple but powerful. Looking at someone else's financial choices and assuming they're foolish is usually wrong. They're simply operating from a different background, with different priorities and different risks. And the same applies to you. Your financial path doesn't need to match anyone else's. What matters is that it fits your life. Chapter 17. The Seduction of Pessimism. Pessimism has a unique power. It sounds smarter. It feels more realistic. It gets more attention. Negativity grabs the mind faster than positivity. Be careful sounds wiser than things will be okay. But Housel explains something surprising. While pessimism dominates headlines, optimism tends to win over the long term. Human progress has always been driven by problem solving. Yes, the world is full of challenges, setbacks, and crises. But humans constantly adapt. Technology advances. Economies grow. Innovations appear. Yet pessimism still seduces us for several reasons. Bad news hits hard and fast. Good news is gradual and quiet. Losses feel larger than gains. People fear being naive. Negative predictions feel analytical and sophisticated. But pessimism, if it dominates your financial mindset, becomes expensive. It keeps people out of the market. It makes them hoard cash during the best years. It turns every dip into an apocalypse. It blinds them to opportunity. This chapter reminds you that long-term optimism, paired with short-term realism, is the mindset that truly builds wealth. Chapter 18. When you'll believe anything. Humans love stories. We're wired for narrative. And when money is involved, we often believe stories that make us feel good, even when they're not true. Financial bubbles are built on stories. Scams are built on stories. Trends are built on stories. Entire economic cycles are shaped by stories. People want to believe that easy money exists, that things will keep rising, that they're smarter than others, that this time is different. One good story can override 1,000 facts. Here's why this happens. The world is complicated. Money is emotional. And when reality feels confusing, people look for explanations, even if they're flawed. A simple, convincing story feels safer than uncertainty. This chapter encourages you to question narratives, especially the ones you want to believe. Be skeptical of overly simple explanations for complex events. Be cautious of predictions that sound too confident. Be wary of promises that ignore risk. Good financial thinking isn't about finding the most exciting story. It's about understanding the world in a way that keeps you grounded. Chapter 19. All together now. This chapter brings all the lessons together into a practical, unified philosophy of money. Housel summarizes the book's concepts into a set of timeless principles that anyone can apply. Save more than you think you need. Because life is unpredictable, take risks that won't destroy you. Survival is the foundation of every long-term plan. Be patient. Most rewards come from compounding, and compounding takes time. Be reasonable, not perfect. A plan you can stick to beats the perfect plan you cannot. Avoid comparing yourself to others. Their situation is not your situation. Plan for surprises. History shows the biggest events are the least expected. Be optimistic about the long term. Human progress compounds just like money. Accept that you will change. Your goals, priorities, and lifestyle will evolve. Focus on what you can control. Ego, envy, impulsiveness, and insecurity destroy more wealth than markets ever will. By stitching these lessons together, the book creates a clear picture. Money success is not about being smarter. It's about being emotionally aware, resilient, and steady. Chapter 20. Confessions. In the final chapter, Housel shares his personal approach to money. These aren't universal recommendations, but they reveal how someone deeply knowledgeable about finance actually applies these ideas in real life. Here are his key confessions. 1. He doesn't maximize every financial opportunity, because chasing optimal strategies often creates stress. 2. He prefers simplicity. Simple strategies are easier to stick with for decades. 3. He values independence above everything. Freedom over luxury. Time over status. 4. He accepts lower returns in exchange for peace of mind, because sleep is more valuable than squeezing out an extra %. 5. He keeps a large cash buffer. Not because the math says it's optimal, but because it makes him feel safe. 6. He avoids debt aggressively. Again, not because it's financially perfect, but because it provides emotional comfort. 7. He understands his own psychology and builds his financial life around it. This final chapter is a reminder that money is personal. What works for someone else might not work for you. The goal isn't to win. The goal is to live a life you're proud of. Key insights and takeaways. The core lessons of The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel revolve around human behavior. Here are the most practical takeaways, kept short and usable. 1. Money decisions are emotional. People act based on experiences, fears, and habits. Real life. Don't chase perfect logic. Build systems you can actually follow. 2. Enough protects you. Knowing your limit keeps you from unnecessary risks. Real life. Define what's truly enough for your lifestyle. 3. Compounding rewards patience. Small, steady decisions matter more than big wins. Real life. Save consistently and avoid interrupting long-term growth. 4. Wealth is invisible. What people show is spending. Wealth is what you don't see. Real life. Focus on savings, not appearances. 5. Avoid ruin at all costs. Long-term success depends on staying in the game. Real life. Keep a safety margin, cash buffer, modest lifestyle, flexible plans. What the author wants you to understand. The book has one central message. Your behavior with money matters more than your intelligence. Housel wants readers to understand their own psychology. Avoid comparing themselves to others. Build simple, durable habits. Seek freedom, not status. Stay humble in success and patient in the long term. If you grasp these ideas, you won't just improve your finances, you'll improve your relationship with money itself. Strengths of the book. Simple but powerful storytelling makes complex ideas easy to remember. Relatable psychology helps listeners see their own habits clearly. Universal lessons apply to beginners and experts alike. Short chapters keep the ideas sharp and digestible. Conclusion. The psychology of money isn't about stock tips or prediction tricks. It's about understanding yourself, your reactions, your impulses, your fears, and your motivations. When you master your behavior, you gain the clarity to make steady, confident financial choices. This book reminds you that real wealth is freedom. Freedom to choose how you spend your time. Freedom to avoid stress and pressure. Freedom to build a life that fits you. Thank you for listening to this summary. If you enjoyed it, explore more insights on the channel. Until next time, take care of your money and your mindset. They're both shaping your future.